Welcome to Fight Town podcast, where we are going to be previewing Neilson Boxing Fight Town on the 5th of November this Saturday, aren't we, Rob? It's going to be a fantastic night of boxing, isn't it?
Yeah, mate, it's packed as well. A lot of 50-50s, a couple of debuts. Yeah, it's going to be decent.
Yeah, it is. Like you said, it is a packed card for anyone looking to go down there this Saturday night. And the fight at the top of the bill, I think we're okay to suggest this now, is Tommy Jacobs versus Beau Reynolds. And we are going to speak to both fighters later on in the podcast. But just to touch on it, what a fantastic fight Saturday night, Rob.
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I think I know they're slightly different ages. I think they'd agree with that. They're both relative novices, really, as professionals. So to go into this sort of fight at your call, up towards the top of the bill, 50-50, I rate it. I really do, and I wish more fighters would do it. That record is protected too much at times by fighting journeymen who journeymen serve their purpose. But I love this, absolutely love it.
Absolutely agree, Rob. And we have spoken many times on the podcast, suggesting that, you get some fighters who are 16-0, and you look at the resume and they really haven't fought anyone. But these two, hats off to them, because they are at the stages where they could be looking to build their records, but they've brushed that to the side and they're just going to get in there, and it's going to be all out war and a fantastic fight, isn't it, for any boxing fans going down on Saturday night?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant clash of styles. I know you've seen Beau in the flesh. We've watched Tommy's performance back from last time when he got back to winning ways. I think yeah, fireworks on bonfire night. I think you mentioned to me earlier.
Yeah, and just touching on those styles, for podcast listeners, Tommy Jacobs has got one of those beautiful sort of lowered hands, flashy southpaw style. The one when they almost sort of egg the person on to, thrust a jab out of them, and it's great to watch, very entertaining. And Beau Reynolds is a southpaw with a very rangy jab and sort of dangerous uppercut. So it's going to be full on, and like we said, Rob, just before, we are going to speak to both boxers. So Fight Town podcast listeners, we will come on to more about that fight later on. But what else have we got on the bill Saturday night, Rob?
Yeah, what tickled your fancy, mate? Which ones have you been eyeing up this week?
Well, I was taking a look at Louis Horn, who fights in the lightweight division.
Mm.
He's a very good boxer to watch, orthodox style. And he fights out in Essex, and he's coached by Mark Tibbs, so he's definitely
Mm.
one to keep an eye on. He's
Yeah,
fighting Michael Mooney, who has a particularly, he has one of those records that when you look at it, it's almost quite astonishing.
I agree. I agree. This is his 97th fight. How amazing is that? This is what I meant earlier about journeymen serving their purpose. What a servant to the sport. He's approaching 100 fights. Yes, he's won 10% of his fights. He's lost a lot, but he's very rarely stopped. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for Louis Horn to go in. He's only 2-0, just to learn. Just go in there, learn. If he gets a stoppage, great, because it will look great against a very tough guy. But if he doesn't, it's rounds in the bank. It's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we've said before on the podcast, rounds against these types of fighters can be very valuable. And it's a tough fight going in against someone like Michael Mooney, because he ain't going to be moved easy. And like you just touched on, Rob, it'll be a chance for Louis Horn to really show his skills and what he's learned from Mark Tibbs in the gym, and put it out there in the ring on Saturday the 5th.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it should be an interesting fight. Who else have we got? We got Hannah Bagley is
Yeah.
against Patricia Gonzalez. It should
Mm.
be an interesting one for Hannah, shouldn't it?
Yeah, she's been so unlucky. I don't know if you follow her on social media, but I've kept up to speed with the last 12 months really, and she should be on her fourth, fifth, sixth fight by now.
Yeah,
And she's only had a couple, because the amount of times that this poor girl has had fights pulled, shows pulled,
yeah.
very unlucky off the back of COVID. So she'll be chuffed to get in at your call, and get back to winning ways as well, because she unfortunately lost her second fight. So she'll be looking to get some momentum going again, I think, especially after, not just after a loss, but also after a tough period personally in terms of getting a fight.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Rob. And like we all know, like we've said many times, is in boxing, especially in the pro game, it's all about momentum. And I'm sure if we spoke to Hannah Bagley now, she would say that she just wants to get in there and box, and keep up the fights maybe towards the end of the year and into next year. And she can do that with Neilson Boxing. We've seen this year that they're one of the busiest, if not the busiest UK promoter. They've had an extreme amount of shows this year, so she's in good hands with Neilson Boxing. And if she wants to be active and keep the momentum going, she can, can't she?
Definitely, and she will keep busy with Neilson, because, like you say, their schedule this year has been stacked, absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? They've had a lot of shows in the sort of South Central area, loads at York Hall, and that will only continue next year. And if she can make a good statement, then I'm sure she'll get booked again.
Yeah, and we did mention just at the beginning of the Fight Town podcast, Rob, that the top of the bill, Tommy Jacobs and Beau Reynolds, but we've got another fantastic fighter, equally as entertaining, in Johnny Ward, who's coming up against Pavel Garage. For Johnny. I would, we haven't spoken to him recently, but it's about keeping active for him, isn't it?
Yeah, great value when we had him on last time, wasn't he?
Oh,
And talks very well. I mean, we've spoken a few times, haven't we, about his little call out after his last victory, a very quick victory as well. He wants that Southern Area title, doesn't he? And yeah, I think this is going to be another step towards that.
yeah, absolutely. And if you look at Johnny Ward at the moment, he is 4-0. His last three opponents, he's stopped. He's like a wrecking ball at the moment, isn't he? And Pavel Garage hasn't been stopped for over a year, and in around sort of about 16 fights. He's not an easy opponent to stop as such. So
No, absolutely not. I do think it's going to be attack versus defense, though,
yeah,
for however long this lasts, because, like you say, Johnny's on a crest of a wave. He's got this momentum, knockout after knockout. His last knockout was in around 90 seconds, which is just a joke. And then you've got Pavel Garage, who, yes, he's got a heavy losing record, but he's only ever been stopped once. And like you said, that was a while ago. So this is going to be a tough guy for Johnny to crack. And if he does, it's a good statement. And you never know, he might call out Mr. Webber again.
yes, indeed. With Johnny Ward, he is riding the crest of a wave. He's got this exuberating confidence, which is a boxer. And it's going to be a tough fight against Pavel Garage. If you look at who he's been in with over the years, he's been in with Bradley Ray, Denzel Bentley, to name a couple of people. So
yeah,
he knows a boxing ring when he sees one. So it's not
a British ring as well.
So it shouldn't. It's not going to go automatically all Johnny Ward's way. But like you said, this could be a statement evening for Johnny Ward, couldn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And yeah, he just wants to start picking up some belts. The good thing is he's very active as well. And we've spoke to a number of fighters via Neilson over the last few months, haven't we? And they're all talking about having activity, and Neilson are providing it for them. So long may that continue.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And Fight Town podcast listeners, like we mentioned earlier on, we are going to be speaking to Ciaran Flanagan, Tommy Jacobs, and Beau Reynolds after we've previewed Saturday's fight. Now, Rob, is there any other fights we want to take a look at?
Well, we always love the idea of a debut at York Hall, don't we? We spoke to a few people on the presses where this has happened, and Tyler Chambers has that honour on Saturday. He's going in with Carl Sampson, who has a very misleading record. He's 4-12, so he's lost 3/4 of his fights. But get this, right? So he only won one of his first 12 fights, right? So he was 1-11, but he's won his last 3. So I don't know where this form has come from for Carl Sampson, but it's not a great time for Tyler to do his debut on. So it's going to be tougher than Carl's record suggests. And if he can get through Carl on Saturday, that's a great opening to your pro career.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that the matchmaking, we did have a great insight last.
Yeah, with Kyle, yeah.
and it was so intriguing to see, you know, at this particular level, when you're looking at boxers who are quite fresh to the pro game, how difficult it is to get these fights on. And when you look at this packed card coming up and people like Tyler Chambers who are making their debut, it's hats off to people like Carl and matchmakers who actually get these shows rolling, basically, isn't it? But
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Chambers. Now, another fight I want to look at is Robert Casewell, who's fighting at super featherweight, I believe,
That's
against
right.
Betcha Gigalashvili. Have I pronounced
Well done. Well done.
There we go. I've done something right on the podcast. But yeah, it's when you look at Robert Casewell, he's a very classy boxer, and it's going to be interesting to see him back out. He's 4-0, and the featherweight division, as we well know in the UK, is absolutely on fire at the moment. We've spoken about it quite a lot on the podcast over the last couple of months, haven't we? And it's
Yeah, feather, super feather, brilliant. Yeah.
yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how he gets on against Kvecha.
It's his first time at your call as well.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, yeah. So that'd be great for him.
An interesting fight. And any other fights we will take a look at, Rob, before we move on to talk to Ciaran Flanagan?
The James Hawley fight. I love a fight where you've got a prospect coming through, who's seeking a first KO, and I love it when they go in with a journeyman who have a very tough record and very rarely get stopped. It's kind of something has to give. I love those kind of fights, and they're great for the progression of a a relatively novice fighter.
Yeah.
I know James is 7-0, but he'll be looking to kick on next year, and yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he can get Brian Wayne out of there on Saturday.
Will be interesting. And I believe you've got James Hawley and Harry Mullins who are fighting. I think they both fight out of Bromley Boxing Club, which is
Yeah, that's right. James obviously seeking his first KO. Yeah,
and Harry Mullins as well at flyweight against Marius Vivivinus. Have I got that?
I'll give you that one.
Yeah, but both fighters fighting out of Bromley Boxing Club. Might be one for us to visit, but they seem to be churning out some decent boxers. I'm sure they have done over the past years as well. But quite recently, they've been churning out some good names out of Bromley Boxing Club. So that should be interesting, shouldn't it?
Yeah, brilliant. So all in all, great card. I love it when some of the sort of non-televised shows are getting the female boxers on as well. I'm a big fan of that. You've got prospects, you've got 50-50s, you've got gatekeeper fights. Love it. Yeah, it's going to be good.
Yep.
You're gonna get yourself down there.
I should hopefully this Saturday be getting myself down there. And also, just to touch on before we move on and speak to Ciaran Flanagan, Rob, Jack Henty, who is 2-0 super.
Oh yes, sorry, yeah.
He's the Welling Warrior, and his last fight he had a TKO stoppage against Henrik Harak. Super welterweight division, as we well know. Again, just to touch on it, in the UK at the moment is absolutely flying, isn't it? With
yeah, just a bit.
yeah, fighters like Troy Williamson, Liam Smith,
Josh Kelly.
Kelly. Yeah, it's a great division to be in, and it'll be interesting to see Jake Henty sort of move up those ranks, won't it?
Yeah, definitely. Area first, one step at a time. But he only made his debut 12 months ago, and he's getting good experience at York Hall as well. I believe that every fight he's had has been at York Hall so far, so that is definitely going to stand him in good stead. Interesting though for Jake, he's up against a debutant. You never quite know how that's going to go. Whether you're going to be up against the next experienced journeyman or the next world champion, you just don't know, do you?
Very true. Casey Bradnam, I believe.
That's correct, yeah.
His debut at the York Hall this Saturday on the 5th of November. Just to touch very quickly, Rob, I believe Jordan Dujon and Jack McGann also fight in that same division with Neilson Boxing. So could be interesting.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And we know Jack McGann is out later on in this year again, so it'd be good to see him fighting. But Jack Henty this Saturday. One more fight just to touch on before we speak to Ciaran Flanagan is Kate Radomska is fighting against Yvette Garcia.
Yep, rematch. Last time out was very close, so I can see why. I think it was 76, 77, so around in it. So I can understand why they're putting these two ladies, back in together. Last time out, Kate fought Gemma Roog, who you may remember she was on one of the televised shows recently, the Savannah Marshall undercard. So good name. But she'll be looking for a good return against the previous opponent.
Yeah, fantastic. And Fight Town podcast listeners, Saturday night, 5th of November at the York Hall with Neilson Boxing. It's going to be a great night of boxing. We are going to speak to Ciaran Flanagan, who fought in Oxford recently, and then that headline event with Tommy Jacobs and Beau Reynolds. We have both boxers coming up next. Right, welcome to the next part of the Fight Town podcast, where we have Ciaran Flanagan on the show to talk about his last couple of fights and what is in store for the future. Ciaran, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thanks very much for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, Ciaran. Good to have you on, pal.
Yeah, thank you, boys. Thank you.
Yeah, and first and foremost, I think we mentioned it just before you came on, but congratulations on that victory. How was the night and how was the fight? How did it go?
Yeah, do you know what? It was better than as I've planned, including the crowd and the home crowd. It was really, really a really enjoyable night from start to finish.
Superb. And obviously, I believe you were born in Oxford, mate, and obviously from the area still. Fighting locally must have meant a lot, especially after the first show in generations. I think it was 60 years since Oxford put a pro fight on.
Yeah, I think it was 63 years. I believe.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't realise it was that long since the last pro show in Oxford.
Yeah, it's amazing, really, for such a a sporting city, a very famous sporting city. But it surprised me as well. The long, hopefully it's not another 60 years.
No, yeah, hopefully not. When I signed with Neilson, they did say to me that they would do a show in Oxford, and I think it was not far off the year to when I signed. The date was actually announced. Mark said he'd do a show in Oxford, and then it come through, and I was like, just what you need.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Ciaran, just a quick one, and obviously not to cover over the cracks. I was there for your debut at York Hall, and obviously it didn't go quite to plan. To get back up and get back in the gym and back in the ring in Oxford, was it an actual real relief to finally get that first victory?
Yes, it was. It was a big. It wasn't as such as a hard getting back in, because I knew exactly what me and my coach Luke Heller had to go back to the gym and worked on, and we had done that. We learned it was more of an eye opener to the pro game, my debut. The build up, the ticket selling, it was a very big eye opener for me to the professional game.
Yeah, and on that note, I can't remember who we were speaking to on the podcast, but fighting at the York Hall in front of a big Neilson Boxing crowd, you don't realise the prestigiousness of that that place. And for your debut, it's obviously quite a nerve-wracking place to go in there and showcase your skills on your debut.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, it is the home of professional boxing, and it's only until you embrace the venue, it's really daunting on you of the size and the way the venue set out itself. It was a dream come true to make it a York Hall. I just couldn't turn it down when they said York Hall. It was just one of them things. You make your debut at York Hall, it's amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you mentioned, Ciaran, that you had to, you knew exactly what you had to do between your first and second fights to prepare. Can I ask, what those preparations were, and did any preparations change, sort of, physically, mentally between the two fights?
Yeah, there was a few things. Me and my coach went back to the gym and worked on week in, week out. Just little things, hand positioning, and just general boxing skills. That we watched back, we studied back and watched the debut and where we went wrong and what happened. I brought in a new strength coach and just tried to fill up a bit of featherweight in general. But to go back to the gym and work on certain things with Luke, like I did, and we could see, we've now watched back the second fight, look, the improvements were there.
Fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic, Ciaran. And you mentioned obviously just before we started about the flyweight and that particular division. How do you find making weight at flyweight? And is there any plans to move to any
featherweight? I was eating. I had 2 meals before my weigh-in. I make featherweight really, really easily. It's never ever been a struggle to make featherweight. So I believe I want to have a big year next year. 4 or 5 fights, and I believe we will be moving down to super bantam.
Hey, but those weight divisions, I mean, you see it all the time at all levels, that there isn't a massive difference, is there, between the weight divisions, and you do see fighters move up and down. Do you think long term that may be something that you consider, especially when
Yeah,
you
no,
get towards
definitely.
titles?
Yeah, no, definitely at super bantam, maybe bantam for a title. I think I'll be able to get down to that comfortably.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. Do you think Oxford's going to sort of hold some more shows going forward?
I
It
hope
must have meant
so.
a lot. Must have meant a lot to you
The
and the
crowd
lads,
in that
because
place. I hope so, because the crowd in that place was heaving in there, and it was such a good feeling.
you were all local lads, weren't you?
Yeah, there was 4 of us on, and we were all local to Oxford. There was me, Jordan Flynn lives just literally 2 minutes down the road. Bradley Townsend, I believe, originally is from Northway, which is just 5 minutes down the road, and then Tom out in Whitney.
Fantastic.
And just to touch on your victory again, Ciaran. Again, congratulations. But Nabil Ahmed, who you fought, is no brushover, is he? He doesn't
No, definitely not.
lose. And what was it like in there with him? Was it a tough fight? How did you find it?
No, it was a tough fight. He was a game opponent. He didn't come to lie down. He was a game opponent, and I just stuck behind my jab, and that's what me and my coach worked on. Is just getting behind the jab and working from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I remember on your debut at York Hall, I was actually there watching the fight. I think that you used the jab fantastically in the first round or two, and then you just sort of lost your way with that. But that can happen in the debut, and as we all know, some of the best fighters get off to the worst starts, don't they?
Yes, no, definitely. There is some big names that if you look back on the likes of Johnny Nelson, if you look at his record in his first 3, I think it is that he lost, and look where he went on to go on and achieve.
Exactly, and looking back at it as well, it wasn't a heavy defeat, was it? It was just one of those nights, and you just got caught with it. But what's the future looking like for Ciaran Flanagan? Any more fights coming up this year?
Nothing. Towards the end of this year, I want to push on and have a big year. Neilson's as always got a stacked year next year. They're really, really busy, so there'll be plenty of opportunities on shows around this way for me to get on. I will be sitting down and having a chat with my team and planning out the busy next year ahead.
You mentioned about wanting to be busy and be active next year, Ciaran. How many fights ideally would you be hoping to have a look at next year?
To push on for 4 or 5,
Nice.
and then we'll see where we are from there.
What about rounds? Do you think you'll be getting into 6 and 8 rounders by the end of the year?
Yeah, no, definitely. Be pushing on 6 or 8 rounders towards the end of the year. No, 100%.
Brilliant. Hopefully in Oxford, eh?
Yeah, no. Hopefully they come back to Oxford. The crowd was good there. It was a good atmosphere in there. Hopefully to try and find a bit of a bigger venue. Also, I know it was at the home of Oxford United Football Stadium.
Yeah,
but a bit of a bigger venue would be ideal.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic, Ciaran. Ciaran, it's going to be great watching your career. You've already shown so far that your fights are full of excitement, and you're learning the trade. All the best for you for the future, and hope you'll come back and see us on Sport to Fight Town podcast.
No, yeah, definitely. Thanks very much for having me.
No, yeah, cheers, Ciaran. Come on after a couple more fights, mate, and we'll we'll catch up.
Definitely be a big year next year, and there'll be lots more to talk about.
Lovely.
Cheers, Ciaran.
Cheers. Thanks very much, lads.
Cheers, pal.
Right, podcast listeners, we are now going to move on to the main event, which is coming up on the 5th of November, this Saturday, for Neilson Boxing, and we have got 2 of the boxers to speak to this evening, coming up now. Right, Fight Town podcast listeners, we just spoke with Ciaran Flanagan, who has just had a victory in his 2nd professional fight. Now we come on to the 5th of November, which is Neilson Boxing Fight Town, and we have Tommy Jacobs, who is fighting the headline on this fight against Beau Reynolds. Tommy Jacobs, welcome to Fight Town podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's great to have you on ahead of this big fight coming up on Saturday night. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, Joe, I cannot wait. I'm really excited about the fight. And until you just said then, I didn't realise it was the headline. I thought there was a couple of title fights on there.
No, I believe you have been pushed forward to the headlining fight of the night, and I believe it's well worthwhile as well. It's going to be a fireworks between you and Beau Reynolds, isn't it?
Well, it's the right night for fireworks, so yeah, it's going to go down well.
Fantastic. Tommy, just to go back to your previous fight, if we may. I know
Yep.
we had you on the presser beforehand, and I know you were really eager to get back to winning ways, and you did. Talk us through that, mate. 6 valuable rounds.
Yeah, exactly that, John. It was six rounds I needed under my belt, back under the lights, boxing in front of a crowd again, rather than just aspiring in the gym. And listen, it was a bit of a routine victory, and but it was a very valuable one. 6 important rounds. I'm without sounding like a div, you know what I mean? It's one of them that if I would have just started going through the gears, I could have probably got rid of him. But that's not what it was about. It's about getting him rounds under my belt. 6 professional rounds, which I haven't completed yet. So it was a brilliant victory for myself.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, and you know yourself, Tommy, all too well that it's so valuable to get those rounds under your belt, especially in preparation for someone like Beau Reynolds, who can be quite active and quite explosive in there. Have you been training for that style of fight?
Yeah, no, exactly that. So, sorry, I'm just moving away from the speedball because I've got people punching it. Yeah, exactly that. It's very important to get them 6 rounds under my belt and competitive rounds, albeit like I say, a bit of a routine performance. But yeah, very happy to get them done and get that all important W.
Yeah. Have you ever crossed paths with Beau at all, whether in sparring or in the gym or anything like that?
No, I haven't. No, no, not at all. No, obviously, I don't really know too much about him. I know he had his debut on the same show that I lost on to his teammate, and then I know he's boxed again since then.
Yeah.
He picked up a draw, but he's remained undefeated. Listen, it's another day at the office. I'm a fighter. This is what I do, and I just can't wait to get in there.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's going to be for my mind. Looking at both of you, I both enjoy your how you both fight as boxers, and it's I hate saying the cliche, Tommy, but it's a real nice clash of styles in there. You've got yourself, you're both southpaws, I believe, but
Yep.
just quick lower hand stance with a flashy style, and you Beau, who's very come forward fighter. Have you looked at his fights to see how you're going to take him on?
Do you know what? No, I haven't. I had a brief look on YouTube against his first one against Sebastian Boychan. I had a brief look at that, and then I saw the next fight briefly again. I watched a round or so of each. That was about it, if I'm honest. And I've just been concentrating on myself because regardless of who you're in there with, like until you get in there with them, you can't take too much from videos. Like I know he might box a certain way or whatever, but if he's going to do that against me, it's going to be a completely different ballpark because to be fair, he's not going to have been in with anyone like myself. The way that I box and the style that I bring, it's probably pretty hard to find. A bit, do you know what I mean? An awkward southpaw, like you say, low guard and all that. It's probably not come across many in sparring.
Yeah. I know you won't be overlooking Beau this weekend, Tommy, but moving forward, are you looking to move quite quickly, get quite busy next year? What are your plans?
I'm fighting 18 days later. I'm fighting
Brilliant.
on the 28th of November. So
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not overlooking anyone, and I never ever will. But yeah, I've got another fight already booked in, ready to go. And like the key to me is staying busy. If I can stay busy, then my main thing is keeping weight down. That's my hardest opponent is the scales. So if I can stay busy, then I'll stay super fit and I'll stay on top of the weight, and then we're all good to go.
Yeah. Do you see yourself moving between the divisions as time goes on, mate? Whether it be light or super middle?
No, yeah. I'll be when I box titles, I'll be down at light middleweight definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like listen. Let's not have no questions about it. I'm too small at middleweight. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. I'll be at light middleweight when it comes to titles. So and I'm hoping in the early part of the new year that's when we'll be looking.
Fantastic.
And you did make me smile there, Tommy. 28 days and you'll be back in the ring again. But like you said, it's about getting active now and getting those pounds under your belt. And like you said, keeping the weight and keeping active's the key, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, exactly that. Hold on 1 sec. 1 minute left, you lot. Come on, let's go. Last minute.
Tell him, Tommy. Tell him.
For me, it's all about keeping active. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm an older person than what I wanted to be. However, the miles ain't on the clock.
Yeah.
So I'll treat it like a 20-year-old back in the 90s. Do you know what I mean? I'll fight as often as I can. But by the time I would have had this fight on the end of November, that's 3 fights in 8 weeks I've had.
Fantastic, Tommy. Well, all I can say to that, Tommy, is keep going. And as we know, Saturday night is going to be an absolutely explosive night, isn't it, Rob?
Yeah, fantastic. Your call again for him as well. Brilliant. Being high up on the bill as well. Yeah, what an honour.
And you know what? Fight Town podcast listeners, we got exclusive a bit of soundbite in that gym environment. It's absolutely fantastic, isn't it? And yeah, it's going to be a great night on the 5th of November. Now, I believe Fight Town podcast listeners, we are going to speak to Tommy Jacobs' opponent, which is Beau Reynolds, which is coming up next. Right, Fight Town podcast listeners, we've just spoken to Tommy Jacobs, who is fighting on Saturday night against Beau Reynolds. And we have Beau Reynolds on the podcast now. Beau, welcome to Fight Town podcast. How are you doing?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad, thank you.
Excellent. And Rob, you got anything else to ask Beau before this massive fight on Saturday night?
Yeah, absolutely. I bet you're buzzing, right at the top of the card, your call. It doesn't get much better than that, mate.
No, it doesn't. I mean, my 2 previous fights have been at your call.
Yeah.
Always wanted to fight there, and now I can't seem to get away from it.
Brilliant. Obviously, time of recording, it's Tuesday evening. Where are you in terms of ticking over now? Have you got any more training sessions left? Where are you at?
I'm still in the gym every day.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be in the gym all the way till the end now. Just ticking over, sharpening up, just going over technical little bits. But apart from that, I'm there, mate. The weight's good. Everything's where it should be. So ready to rumble now.
Fantastic.
And Beau, just touching on that with fighting at middleweight, you are quite a big middleweight. You've got quite a big stature on you. How do you find hitting that middleweight?
Surprisingly, I make the weight easy, like ridiculously easy. I hate it. Don't get me wrong. I hate it. I miss my food massively, but I make the weight easy. Yeah, I make the weight easy.
Oh, fantastic. And we've just spoken to Tommy Jacobs. As you probably well know, he's a game opponent. And this fight, really and truly, for boxing fans, it's going to be absolute fireworks on Bonfire Night on the 5th of November. And, how are you preparing for this one, knowing what Tommy Jacobs brings?
It's a bit of a strange one, really, because all due respect, it came out of nowhere. I was in the gym, and then we got a phone saying, "Oh, Tommy's called you out," and I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Let's do it. Let's have it."
Love it.
Because obviously there's a history with obviously my teammate Bill and the outcome that fight had. So he's called me. So there's a little bit of sort of, not animosity, but there's a little bit of tension there because my teammates beating me, trying to get redemption. I mean, I'm not really involved in it. I've just been called out, so I've said yes, and there's nothing more to it really.
Fantastic. It makes, for me personally, as a boxing fan, Beau, it makes for just such an exciting fight. And I was listening to a podcast earlier, and sometimes these British fights and they can be much better and more entertaining than sort of even like world title fights when people put it all on the line in places like this. It's such great entertainment, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, on I've only had 2 fights, and Tommy's still up and coming. So we're both um, sort of novices at this level. We're both still getting experience. So really, it's a massive fight. It's a massive fight at this level, like the domestic level, and I think it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
I love it. I love it when two prospects get in a ring at this stage of their career. It just it says a lot about them.
Yeah, I mean, who wants to be fighting journeymen all the time? But this is these 50-50 fights that we want.
At your call as well.
Yeah, exactly on firework night. So hopefully there should be a brilliant atmosphere, and we can entertain the fans.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, Beau, just very quickly, just to touch on it, I was at one of your, I think it might have been your debut fight, and you know, you come out of the blocks explosive, and you'll be the first one to say that, you know, you can be drawn into a bit of a fight and brought out of your sort of boxing style into like a bit of a scrap. Is that something you've been looking at, or is it just, you know, part and parcel of being a fighter?
I mean, to be a fighter, you've got to be able to fight regardless. Some people are boxers, some people are fighters. I tend to think I'm a boxer, but I have been drawn into a fight. Especially in my last fight, I got drawn into a fight that I definitely shouldn't have done, and I showed my inexperience and made very, very hard work of it. But this time around, I'll be boxing, and that is when I'm at my best.
Yeah. You mentioned there about your last performance or last result. Have you made any adaptations in training that could stand you in good stead going into this fight?
Yeah, we have made I mean, we've totally changed our style, and it's absolutely, you know, much better for the best. But in terms of the last fight, that wasn't anything to do with my boxing. It was just to do with me mentally. I just lost it, and I just didn't compose myself, and I wasn't me. Obviously, I broke my hand in the first round. I got cut in the third round. I got put down in the second round. So a lot went on, and it was a lot to take in for me at so early on in my career. But that's boxing, and that's how you learn.
How's the hand?
Yeah, my hand's fine now. It's
Good.
fine. It's just one of the things, isn't it? Unfortunately.
And just touch on that, Beau. I mean, I watched that fight, and bloody hell, you know, it just shows you how tough the sport of boxing is, especially when, you know, when you get caught in those types of scraps. And he was a game bloke as well, wasn't he? I mean, he come to have a scrap as well, didn't he? But like you said, you sort of let him in, didn't you, by getting involved in that sort of fight?
Yeah, I just as well have stood there and paid him to hit me. You know, I just left my hands down and just basically expose myself. But I mean, it's a learning curve, and that's all I took from that fight. I learned, and we come back. I was straight back in the gym, and now we are where we are now, ready for a 50-50.
Before we let you go, can I ask for a prediction?
Yeah, obviously I'm gonna win, and I think I'll knock him out.
Absolutely.
There you go.
But listen, I'm telling you, Beau, as boxing fans, we cannot wait to see this one. So hats off to you and Tommy for taking this fight, because it, you know, like you said, you could go 10 fights fighting journeymen and people who are going to stand as punch bags, but this is for boxing fans on the York Call on the 5th of November. This is going to be a truly fantastic fight, isn't it?
You said it, and that's it. And I'm gonna make my word to make it an entertaining fight for you boys.
Yeah, stay safe, Beau, and may the best man win.
Thanks very much.
All the best, Beau, and good luck as well. Well, listen, Fight Town podcast listeners, we have come to the end of the podcast, and that leaves us to say that we've spoken to 3 of the fighters tonight who are going to be fighting on Saturday night. Thanks again for tuning in. Follow us on Twitter and also subscribe to the podcast, and we shall see you on the next one. Take care.